the time when we could go to college or 22 and then work for 45 years doing that one job at the bank, that time is done, right? And so we need a new mindset for thinking about careers. We need a different educational model, which honestly, I think we already have. It's just YouTube and podcasts.
Hello and welcome to the ImagineAI podcast. Today we have a very special guest, Dan Chuparkoff. Dan, thank you for joining the podcast.
Thanks for having me, Chris. It's great to be here. I'm looking forward to the discussion today. It's a super exciting time in our field right now. And so having a discussion about some of this stuff is going to be super fun. Looking forward to it.
Dan, I couldn't agree more. It's such an exciting time. Could you please tell us 1 minute background on who you are and your history before we get into what you're doing today?
I have been a product management leader for about 30 years, since before we really used that term for the role. My first job, I started working at a company and we failed almost immediately. I had this first job for like 7 months and then we shut the whole company down and all got fired. And part of that was because of our neglect to incorporate the PC into what we were doing as an organization. And so that was sort of like my introduction to the world, realizing like, hey, we could have done this differently if we just understood the PC and how to use it to change our work and create more value for our customers. And then that happened like 6 more times. We got the internet, and then we got mobile, and then we got cloud, and then we got data analytics, and then we got remote work trends, and now AI. And so I've just been really trying to help companies navigate these major plateaus of change for 30 years. And that's how I got started and how I'm here today.
You worked for Google, is that correct?
I did. I just left Google voluntarily, I'll say. Last September, I decided to quit Google. I was starting to do more speaking, helping to coach teams through waves of change, like the generative AI one right here. And I was getting more speaking gigs than I could keep up with while holding down a day job at a company like Google. So I left the Google team, went independent, and now I just speak on podcasts. I go to conferences. I give a keynote called The Innovation Machine, and I'm working on a book that will come out this summer with the same title.
That's amazing. So teams, your innovation and helping teams. Can you explain that a little bit more?
When I talk to people about innovation, before I help them, when I ask people about innovation, they typically think of innovation as a brilliant idea. If we just had this new breakthrough thing for our industry, then everything would be different. Or if we just embraced this new technology like cloud or crypto or blockchain or AI, then all the things would be different. What I've discovered is that it's not actually about the ideas or the technology at all. It's about the behavior of teams and how they approach those technologies or those new ideas. So I help teams figure out how to take a look at their behavior, see what's going well, see what could use some change. I help them like take a more introspective look on the way they work. What even is work? That's a hard question for some people to answer. So I help people navigate that whole dynamic.
What were you doing for Google? How long were you working for them?
I was at Google for 3 years. I led product management for some mobile things. For mobile developers out there, you will know the product Crashlytics, you will know the product Firebase, and you probably know the product Android Studio. So I worked on those 3 things, helping them make better apps for mobile developers. And we had a high percentage, 60 or 70% of the top 10,000 apps on both app stores using our products. So the biggest apps, all the apps on your phone probably were using one of our 3 products.
3 years ago. So that was like you joined during the pandemic time?
I did. I was at McKinsey & Company before that, and I got the call from Google. And when Google calls you, you answer the phone. So I took the leap, as scary as that was. I didn't meet my coworkers for like a year, onboarded during the pandemic. It was really weird, but we made it through, and it was a very remote work culture to begin with anyway. So it wasn't really that different.
Yeah. So being headhunted by Google, that's a nice accomplishment in itself. Going into that remote setting with Google, what was your team experience working with Google?
Yeah, I think Google's an interesting place because on paper, Alphabet is a holding company, right, that owns a lot of different businesses. And inside of that organization, it operates in that way too. The mobile development teams and the search people, they work in different buildings. They have different general managers. They have different P&Ls. They're dramatically different size teams. It's a bunch of different companies. And so I think when you talk to people at Google about the Google experience, you'll often hear them say, it kind of depends on what you're doing there, because it's really a lot of different things. Sometimes it's a startup, and sometimes it's a 23-year-old bureaucratic organization with 120,000 people. It's weird being both a startup and a bureaucratic organization with a legacy cash cow at the same time, but Google's one of the people that navigates that dichotomy.
So your team size for your specific team was how big?
Let's see. My VP had an organization of product managers and developers that was probably 800 people big. And then the director that I worked most closely with had an organization of about 150 people. Organizations typically sort of gel at about 150. When teams grow bigger than that, they really become collections of teams and not a single team with 7,000 people on it. That's not really a team. That's just an organization cluster of some kind.
Yeah, that's actually larger than I thought. That was like kind of the natural group of people that one could effectively lead. I thought it kind of maxed out at 100. So 150 even is pushing that.
Studies have shown that the optimal amount of managers for a manager to manage is 5 people. If you have fewer than 5 people led by a single manager, they're not at full utilization. But if you have more than 5 people, then the manager isn't quite able to have one-on-ones every week with the people. They're not quite able to understand the full dynamics of what's going on. So if you have a 1-to-5 ratio, smallest possible team you could have is probably 1 leader and 5 managers. So a lot of founding teams start to look like that quickly, of 6 people. Then you grow, and each of those 5 people gets 5. So now you have 31. And then you grow again, and now you've got a VP and a director and a manager and some workers. Now it's 4-level organization. And if that 1-to-5 ratio is preserved, that adds up to 156 people. So if you go beyond 156 people, you're starting to get a wider organization where you're more flat, which some people like, and that's fine too. And if you start, or you could go taller so that you have more levels in the organization. And both of those things come with side effects. But somewhere between 100 and 156 people, I think, is the optimal amount for a functioning team that's moving forward together with a single strategy.
I love that laid out like that. I can actually visualize that. So thank you. Can you tell us, what did Google do well and what did they not do as well from an organizational standpoint?
Certainly the thing they do best is recruit some of the smartest, most talented software-related people in the world. And so in my time there, I could learn from amazing, talented people. I went to Google with 27 years of software development experience. And most other places that I would go, I would be the lead product person, maybe the CPO or the CTO, maybe both. Product and tech people reporting to me. But the problem with that is I won't get to learn anymore. I'm not growing. I'm in charge of stuff, and that feels cool. And I get to help people, and that feels cool too. But I don't get to grow. And Google is one of the only places that no matter what your skill level is, you can go there and keep growing every single week. And that's just a phenomenal opportunity that I hope everyone gets the chance to do someday.
As an organization, what could they do better? What are their weaknesses?
I think it's a very autonomous place where people get to work on things that they're passionate about. They get to have ideas and pursue them for a while and see if they work. The downside of that is that you can sometimes be going in many different directions at the same time, sometimes competing with your own teammates, with conflicting ideas. One of them eventually one day is going to win, and then the other one is going to get shut down. From both inside Google, sometimes that feels shitty. And externally, sometimes that's not good either, because the people externally don't understand that one of these two solutions is going to get shut down someday, right? And so the deprecation, the Google graveyard, is a thing people talk about on the internet. the ability to work on stuff without risk helps them innovate in a way that not everyone gets to. But the downside of that is eventually you will shut some things down, and that might catch customers, real customers, by surprise. That's hard to navigate.
Yeah, the most recent one is Google Podcasts, which is being shut down and like integrated into YouTube Music, I think. And that's another example of something Google product kind of going by the wayside.
Yeah, I didn't work with YouTube or the podcast team at all, so I can only like speculate as much as you. But you can imagine someone in the YouTube organization thinking, okay, our biggest competitor might be Spotify. And Spotify is doing music and also podcasts now, and they're capturing the people. So if we don't figure out how to get podcasts into the hands of our YouTube customers, then we're going to be in trouble. And then, meanwhile, this other team didn't know any of that. They were just making a cool podcast app. And then, sometimes it becomes a leadership tug of war, or at Google, it's more likely a technology strength tug of war, where the most optimal engineering solution will win. And so that adds an interesting dynamic as well.
I think most recently in the news for the Gemini debacle and their AI product that they released, and the historically accurate images of the present founding fathers of the U.S. or the pictures of the Pope, and like it would just bring up like a African American version of that. Do you have a take on the Gemini debacle?
First, all of that unfolded after I left, so I don't really know the details there. But I think it's a wonderful illustration of some of the limitations of AI, because it seems clear to me that when you train any kind of AI on the existing content that exists in the world, it will inherit the biases that exist in the world. AI doesn't care what you wish the world was like. It only knows how the world was. And the downside of that is we don't want our AIs to be racist and biased toward gender and color and culture and all that stuff. So I suspect somebody tried to fix it, right? We trained AI, and every time you asked for a conference room full of people, it would be white men in dark suits, right? And we don't want that. We want a diverse group of people. So somebody probably interjected and fixed the training so that whenever you ask for a group of people, it would be a diverse group of people. Think is the right thing to do. But then sometimes we don't want a diverse group of people. And so they fixed it, but you can't fix it. That's the reason why people, I think, always need to be in the loop. You can't just let AI do the stuff, because people want the world the way we wish it was. And AI only knows how to make the world the way it already was.
That's a good point and good answer. I'm actually noticing that with DALL-E, ChatGPT's image or AI maker, because telling it to make an AI image of this awesome conference in Las Vegas with robots and everyone having a great time. And then, everybody in the crowd's just white people, like beautiful looking white guys in suits and beautiful looking white women. And I'm like, can you make that a little more diverse? And it doesn't even do it really.
It's hard to do that. It's like, I was talking to an insurance company a couple of weeks ago about, they do life insurance, right? And they're trying to figure out what is that going to even mean 50 years from now? How long are people going to live in the year 2085? Those are hard questions. And the whole insurance industry is built on actuarial tables, which is really the first kind of AI. They just looked at how long do people live forever. And now I can predict how long Dan will live because I've trained on the life of humans. That's starting to break down because we don't know how to predict the future anymore, because it's changing so fast that things are unpredictable. And so it's getting harder and harder to make decisions as people, and AI has an even harder time with some of those decisions.
Yeah, things are changing so fast. And speaking of insurance models and home insurance, and with the changes in climate and people not being able to predict these wild temperature swings and storms that come through, and now Florida is having a really hard time trying to price this stuff out, and many homes can't even get home insurance now. Let's now move into AI, and what do people need to figure out or pay attention to when it comes to AI?
I think there's three things that I'll talk about. The first is AI is a pretty general term that means a lot of different things in a lot of people's heads. So the first thing I encourage people to do is to get more specific about referring to AI in the first place. Some people will say AI has been around a long time. Our team has had AI in our product since like 2004. And then other people are saying like AI is this brand new thing. It's like this wave of the future. It's going to change everything about humanity. It can't be both of those things at the same time. And that's because like the old thing was recognition AI, like an algorithm that looks at something and classifies it as in the set or not in the set. The easiest way to understand that is the airport scanner. You send your suitcase through the belt and they look at your belt and there's a knife in it or there's not a knife in it. And that's what I call recognition AI. That's been around a long time. People are using it. There are examples of that everywhere. The other thing is generative. That's not looking at stuff and making a determination about it. It's trying to predict the next word in a sentence or the next pixel in an image or the next line of software code in a software program. And so calling both of those things AI, I think, is problematic. Even inside generative AI, I think image generation and a chat assistant that answers questions for you are also different things. And so I encourage people to start like referring to those things much more specifically. Midjourney is a phenomenal image generation product. So is DALL-E built into ChatGPT. Those are great. And then chat assistants like Gemini or Claude or ChatGPT itself are also great. But if we refer to those as chat assistants and image generators, we'll start to be more clear about like which thing is going to impact us right away and which thing might impact us down the road more.
Great. So that's the first thing, is being more specific with the terms of what AI, you're right, it's just such a broad brush and evoke a lot of emotions in people first off, and then people start thinking about different things when they hear that. And so if you are more specific when you're talking about it, the type of AI, that's a good place to start.
Yeah, exactly. So then thing number 2 is, I mentioned the word work. What does work even mean a little bit ago? And I like to dissect a lot of things, but work is one of the things. And breaking work down into its different parts. There are 6 kinds of work. We can do tasks. We can look for problems. We can discuss the work, information sharing. We can solve problems. We can discover new things, and we can create new things. Those are the only kinds of things we do for our job, really. And the good news is the 3 things at the bottom are things that AI will help us with a lot, and it will take a lot of the manual, repetitive stuff off our plate. The other good news is the 3 things at the top. There's a pyramid, right? Because there's more of that basic stuff at the bottom. And the things at the top are really, really hard for AI to do because of the problem we were just talking about. AI doesn't know how we wish the world was. And that picture helps you look at your week. Like, how are you spending your time? What is the work that you're doing? And how can we take some of that stuff that's monopolizing your week and give it over to the AI or other automation technologies so that you can spend more time solving hard problems, discovering new things for your customers, creating new things for your industry.
Okay, great. So the easiest thing that AI solves, again, are the tasks.
Yeah, so the bottom 3 levels of the hierarchy are tasks, problem identification, so issue discovery, and information management.
The hardest thing is the idea generation.
Problem solving is hard, but discovering brand new things in the world is even harder. And creating brand new things in the world is the hardest possible thing. So ideally, if we can take some of the task and process stuff off our plate and give it to the automation technologies, we've already been doing that. Algorithmic processing helps us all the time. But if we take stuff like that off our plate, it will free us up to do more high-level problem solving, high-level research on what our customers need, or how can we solve problems differently than we ever did before, and what new things can we create for our customers? What customer value things can we do?
Okay, great. So I think we've covered the first 2 things. And how about number 3?
Yeah, so number 3 is really just a continuation of number 2, but the information management part of that work, the talking about work. We spend a lot of time in our work week discussing the work we have. 2 different studies, one from McKinsey and Company and one from Microsoft, both showed that most knowledge workers spend about 2/3 of their week in meetings, email, and chat. It might be, since COVID, it might be as high as 80%. So that's like 3 to 4 days a week is just spent talking about work. And that's good. Sharing information, keeping people in the loop is great. But maybe spending 80% of our time keeping people informed might not be the right percentage. But the good news is most AI, generative AI, is built on language models. It has a fundamental understanding of language that is incredible. And so your ability to summarize a meeting that happened and get automatic notes from an AI assistant, automatically capturing decisions that were made in a discussion or action items, providing a summary to people that couldn't make the meeting. These are things that will speed up our information management inside of organizations. And I think it will do it dramatically. Like if we're spending 36 to 38 hours a week talking about work, if we can make that even 10 or 20% more efficient, it creates trillions of hours worth of free time just in the US alone. That's incredible.
Wow. Yeah, those are very good points. It's something that I feel almost every business can understand, like that's where most of the time saving can occur in an organization. With that time saving, are you recommending specific AI tools for businesses to use to start to save that time, to increase that productivity?
I think the world is in an experimentation phase right now, right? So I think that my first recommendation to every organization is start playing around with meeting notes plugin tools. Any of the online meeting tools, Zoom, Teams, Meet, WebEx, all have an AI note taker built in if you choose to use theirs. Additionally, if you don't like the privacy policy of the built-in one, then you can bring your own with a different tool. I use Otter. Otter.ai is a good one. Right now, what I recommend to people is just start trying out those meeting notes tools so that you see, is the summary reliable enough? Like if you were going to skip a meeting and just look at the summary, would you feel content? That's a question that everyone should answer on their own. So the first step is just start looking at some meeting summary notes and see how good it is. And then look at the privacy policy and see what's happening to the data if you record a meeting, because you should know that. That's, I think, the biggest suggestion for right now. I think over time, we will start seeing that develop even more. Right now, with the state of the functionality, you can have a tool like Otter or the built-in one in Zoom, and it will instantly summarize the conversation, capture action items, and provide a complete transcript so you can play the meeting back if you weren't there. I think what we'll see in the future is something like the note taker in the meeting interjects and says, hey, wait, it sounds like you're making a decision, but the subject matter expert that knows the most about that isn't in this discussion. I think you should wait. Like, that's a mistake that organizations make every single hour of every day. If the AI note taker starts getting smart enough to know, hey, you've been talking about this decision every week for 4 weeks, and I think you actually made the decision 4 conversations ago. Or stop, wait, don't do this because your subject matter expert is on vacation this week. Like, those are things that dramatically improve organizational exchange of information. That, I think, is one of the biggest blockers of team success that exists right now.
Yeah, that's a very good, actionable advice, something that orgs could do today. Do you have a second area that you feel like AI is going to most disrupt, most help organizations?
I think the ability to get research in your industry or with your customers or with specific personas of your customers is already in a really great place. If I ask Claude.ai, one of the other generative AI assistants, if I ask Claude, what are the 5 things that are most challenging about the life insurance industry right now? It gives me a great answer and it gives me links to the sources where it got that information so I can read that stuff more. I do that all the time, and it helps me. It preps me for a conversation with a particular client. It helps me learn about an industry that I'm not embedded in. Those kinds of things, I think, are already pretty mature, and it's dramatically more powerful than just a basic Google search. And so if anybody that's doing like sales outreach or customer management or product management or things like that, that will help you a lot.
That research element and exploring these kind of worst case scenarios, or like what to be concerned about that maybe you're not thinking about right now, and trying to get a holistic approach view of it all. These LLMs do a very good job of summarizing that all. And with all this change and teams and companies being more productive, they're saving time, people are going to be able to do more with their work week. Where does this go for the future of work? What are you concerned about? What are the possibilities?
I think first, generally, I'm optimistic about these things. They will be helpful. I think they will generate a lot of great things in the world. I think some people will be slow to embrace the change, and that might get them into trouble for a little bit. But generally speaking, I think that there will be mostly positive outcomes. I do think the future of work will change. And what I mean by that is sometimes people get comfortable just processing the cogs in the machine, right? They come into work and they do their 7 hours of meetings and they read email and respond to the urgent ones, and then they go home for the day and they're just stuck in that machine. And if we get to the point where our algorithms and our automation technologies are doing the tasks and our AI generative assistants are doing the exchange of information for us, some people will fail to think about those higher level things. And their meeting load will get lower and lower and lower, and their email load will get lower and lower and lower, and they will start just being unproductive and not tackling that challenge. That's, I think, the biggest risk for the workforce as it is right now. But I think that those things, processing the tasks, getting the customer packet and filling out all the missing things and cleaning the anomalies and sending an email to the new people that came in this week and sitting in a bunch of status meetings, that's not high value work anyway. It wasn't that valuable. And so if that stuff goes away, it's not really that different than if you sat there for 8 hours doing those low value things. But some people won't quite see that though they should seek out new stuff. They should try to figure out how to be a research person for your industry instead of a processor person for your industry. That will create the need for people like me to educate them, figure out how they can figure out what they should do instead, upskilling and reskilling and stuff like that.
Yeah. So people in companies, they're going to have more time to be more productive for their companies and hopefully adding more value to what the business is already doing and to their customers. People always talk about the job displacements and technological change. And, a great rebuke to that is that you don't know what new jobs are going to be created from AI. I like to say about how nobody would have heard of my job 10 years ago of clipping up podcasts and putting them out on social media. And now that it's a growing industry, there a lot of people have these long form content that needs to be cut up, and AI is trying to do it, but it doesn't do it well. So that's an example of a job that was created that wasn't there before because of all these the shifting technology and trends.
Are you a podcaster? Do you appreciate the power of AI to make your life more productive? Well, do I have the tool for you? PodcastAI is a company that streamlines all your post-production needs. It honestly saves me an hour or two of work every episode, and it gives me tons of ideas for marketing and social media posts. Go over to podcastai.com now to see for yourself.
Do you have any predictions or any clairvoyance on what people are going to be doing differently in the future with AI?
First, let me address one small point there, because I want to make sure that some jobs will go away and other jobs will get created, and the getting created jobs there will be more of those, right? So we'll have a net gain in employment opportunity for the world. But that doesn't mean if right now your job is taking stock photo photography of a bunch of models around a conference room table, that like that person isn't very much disrupted, right? Like there will be people that will need to reskill, they will need to shift jobs. And honestly, I think all of us are in that bucket because jobs are going to evolve so rapidly in the coming 35 years, 55 years, whatever your time horizon might be. We'll all have to reskill every decade or so. You know, the time when we could go to college or 22 and then work for 45 years doing that one job at the bank, that time is done, right? And so we need a new mindset for thinking about careers. We need a different educational model, which honestly, I think we already have. It's just YouTube and podcasts. It's not big schools with brick walls and ivy on the side. And so, you know, people will learn these new things and they'll get into the habit of learning that stuff rapidly. I have kids that are 22 and they're continuous learners already. They just learn things constantly because they're bombarded with new stuff all the time.
I think that's the biggest skill you can have and that we need to develop in the younger generations is just being a lifelong learner, being curious and searching for those new things and being ready for change, being adaptive. It's really hard to go to college and, I mean, of course, all the major professions are still going to be there, but like the work within those professions changing so much too.
I have no fear or concern at all for young people learning that skill. What I am afraid for is the people that are in the middle of their journey. They still want another 20 years of their career or 15 or whatever the number is, but they are not of the mindset where, oh, I get a new app on my phone, I just learn it. And now I know it, and it's no big deal. It's mostly like other apps, a couple new things. I just learned stuff. That's how life works. When you're more mature in your career, you're like, I don't have time to start over. I'm already 43. I'm 54, and I like to think of myself as a continuous learner. But I'm really scared for the other people that are my age, because most of them are like, I'm already at this point, I can't learn something different. And that's, I think, going to hurt if they don't think about that hard.
Very much agree. So you've got a book. What's your book about?
Yeah, so it's about all these things. First of all, it's called The Innovation Machine. And this will work with a picture a little bit better. So I will share a picture for the audience. When I started to look at how innovation works in organizations, I started to realize that the word innovate isn't actually a verb. We use it like it is sometimes, but if I said, hey, what are you doing, Chris? And you said, I'm sitting here innovating, that wouldn't actually make any sense. And I would think you were making a joke, right? So innovation is just a noun, and it's the thing that results from some other actions. And I believe the actions are, you have to learn new stuff, you have to try experiments, you have to share information more efficiently, because there's always more stuff to share than there was last week. You have to make decisions faster, and you have to technify some of the manual work so that you can get more stuff done. And so learn, try, share, decide, and technify. When you do those 5 things, imagine those 5 things are gears, and you turn those outside gears, and inside there's a center gear, and that gear is innovation. And so that center gear only turns when you do the outside things. Some organizations want to be more innovative, but they're still trying to learn things in the same way they always did. They have no sandbox for experimentation at all. So when they try something new, it's already real and it's for their customers and it's extremely risky. Like we said already, they're spending 37 hours a week sharing information in meetings. All of their decisions are made by too small, a non-diverse group of people. And they don't technify work because they don't think of themselves as a technology company. So they wait for IT to fix some of their problems, or they hope that some software startup gets invented that solves all their problems. And so those are the things in the innovation machine. It's essentially 5 chapters where I help you learn, try, share, decide, and automate more rapidly than you were in the past.
Yeah, that's great. I'm just over here innovating. Yeah, you're right
right. Maybe that means brainstorming in some people's heads, or maybe it means like taking some smart risks or something like that.
Yeah.
But it's
what are you going to do today? I'm going to innovate.
Right.
That word, you have to break it down a little bit more. I think in that trying gear, it's that willingness to fail, that you're going to have these ideas that don't work out, but you need to be able to encourage that culture, that courage within you to like try something that doesn't go anywhere, that fails, and you kind of learn from it, put it away, and maybe come back to it and try it in a different way another time. But if you're not trying and failing, you're not going to find anything that works.
Yeah, exactly. Like going back to the insurance company I was just talking to, because it's fresh in my mind, one of the things I said is, I think you should start playing around with ChatGPT so that you understand what it does and what it doesn't do. And they said, oh, it's blocked in our organization. And I said, yeah, that's normal, probably, because you're dealing with customer data and some of it's important and you don't want that uploaded to some place that you don't understand. But you should try it at home. Like you should go into ChatGPT at your house and say, like, I need a recipe for chicken cacciatore or something, and see what happens. Right? Like you just because you can't do it with your real work doesn't mean it's completely off the table. And so for that company, I encourage them to pay for a personal ChatGPT license for each of the people to play around with at home. So they get familiar with it, and then they can come back to the table and say, I understand what it does and what it doesn't do. And I understand how we could use it here at work. So let's talk about enabling it slowly inside our organization. All new technology should work in that way, I think. People should play around with it a little bit personally for stuff that doesn't matter.
Yeah, for sure. And it really is getting the leadership and the people at the top of these companies into this AI first mindset so that they can lead the culture of all this change that's happening. I had a really good guest on, Eric Vaughn, and he's actually a speaker at ImagineAI Live conference. And he's got 2 different companies with 100 plus people. And he had this just epiphany a year and a half ago that like, hey, if I don't make this change, my competition's going to make this change and I got to do something different. And so with his all hands on deck meeting, we're an AI first company now. You should think of yourself as an AI first marketing, an AI first sales team, an AI first engineering team. And he actually had every Monday of the week be like, okay, you're researching these AI tools. Everyone's got to share tips with each other. And, we're going to see how many tips you contribute to the Slack team every week. We're going to have a little competition about it. And a year and a half ago, when ChatGPT was released, it was really new and scary, exciting, and some people didn't adjust well. And, he repositioned those people that didn't adjust well and starting to get the people thinking about it and using these products every day. And once you do that, then the rest becomes easier. And these changes don't seem as scary once you get used to always you're having this awesome technology and tools at your fingertips, but you got to start using them. So
yeah, that helps a tremendous amount. I think people underestimate the importance of light exposure over longer periods of time. It makes the friction go away.
Well, Dan, this has been an amazing conversation. I wonder, is there anything else that I might have missed that you want to talk about?
I don't think so. I think we covered most of the stuff. Just sort of part with some parting words. I think this is one of the most incredible times in history. When I was at Google, one of the things that didn't come up yet is Sundar Pichai used to say, AI will be one of the most profound inventions of humanity ever in history, more profound than electricity and fire. More profound than fire is a bold statement. I think I agree with them. I think it's going to change the way we interact with other people on our teams or in the world outside of our teams. I think it's going to change the way we think about what work means and how we deliver value to our customers. I think it's going to empower us to do things that are way higher level than we ever could have done before. When I think back to my first, year of work in 1993, without a PC, I had papers I was shuffling around from inbox to inbox, and I couldn't do that much, but like the PC helped me do incredibly more. And then the internet helped me do incredibly more than that. And then mobile helped me do even more. And AI is going to be an accelerator like that too. And it's going to give us all the potential to do incredible things in the world much more broadly than we could have ever done 5 or 10 or 15 years ago. That's just really exciting.
Dan, you managed to give me goosebumps at the end here. That's a very profound note to end on. Thank you so much for coming on the ImagineAI podcast. I hope to see you at the ImagineAI Live conference, and let's talk again soon.
That sounds great. It was a pleasure to be here, Chris. Thanks for having me. I hope to see you next week as well, and thanks for the great conversation.
You bet. Thank you.